Trial, cancel anytime.
With the power of Tandem HR, you are in the fast lane on Main Street with Get Down to Business with Shalom Klein, the show for business and jobs. Now, the champion of networking, the advocate of jobs, the guru of business, your host, Shalom Klein.
We are all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship and business. We talk a lot about business here. You are on with Get Down to Business, and I'm your host, Shalom Klein. And remember, you can always download podcasts from Get Down to Business on my website at shalomklein.com. And while you're there, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Shalom Klein. It's going to be a jam-packed week of content and information that you won't want to miss. It's a live show. You can call us at 312-642-5600, 312-642-5600. And this week, we've got a great lineup of guests. I've got Karen Kaplan with me here in studio, as well as Andy Jansen. I'll be sharing some tips on government contracting. Get Down to Business is powered by Tandem HR, your solution center. You can find them at tandemhr.com or give them a call at 630-928-0510, 630-928-0510, or visit tandemhr.com. So joined here, as I mentioned, in studio by Karen Kaplan, who's raised in West Rogers Park, and now her claim to fame is Karen speaks and has written a book on an interesting topic relating to your family and relating to some experiences that your family had, but I don't want to steal the thunder from you. Karen, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me here today.
Of course. So tell us a little bit about how you were inspired to write the book that you wrote, and we'll talk a little bit about it as we go along.
My book is called Descendants of Rajgród, Learning to Forgive, and it has a powerful message of forgiveness. Before my father, while my father, his health was declining, I started to think a lot about his life, his history, and so on, and I started to look in records of his past, and I was working with a therapist also at that time who suggested that I learn to forgive my father. She saw something inside of me that I never really saw, which was that I was carrying a lot of anger toward him. And I was raised in an abusive household, and I didn't realize I was holding all these toxic emotions and very resentful and bitter. Just as my father was, who was a Holocaust survivor, he had carried all these negative emotions with him for over 70 years. And this therapist that I was working with said, Karen, you need to forgive your father. So I started really trying to understand this whole concept of forgiveness. And eventually I understood what the word meant and went through an emotional process and was able to write a eulogy for my father. And my book then revolves around this eulogy.
So your father, his name is Ari Kaplan, and one of the lessons that I learned in the brief time that I was able to browse through your book, and it really is a fantastic read, and of course we'll make sure that our listeners have an opportunity to find it online and to purchase the book, is not only the message of forgiveness, but also about determination, both your father's determination and courage and his story of survival, but also your determination to forgive. And I think that anybody who has met you, even for just a few minutes, feels that determination and your mission. You're an overachiever. You're not just forgiving, but you're determined to tell people about that message. And I think that lesson of determination is something that people in business, entrepreneurs, certainly can relate to well. So you live here in Highland Park, you live in the neighborhood, and tell us about your family.
So I lived in West Rogers Park, then married right after college and moved to Deerfield for about 22 years where I raised my children until one horrible, unimaginable experience that happened to me in Deerfield. I had a home invasion, and that forced me to then move to from Deerfield to Highland Park. So I newly married a year and a half ago. Life is great. I have 3 kids. They're all doing great. My youngest is graduating college this year.
So you're involved in some interesting speaking engagements. You were actually, you were telling me earlier about some of your international travels. And I see through your website that you're involved, as your website calls it, a project, a cemetery project, which I find fascinating. And I think our listeners will as well. Tell us a little bit about some of the some of the speaking engagements that you've been involved in?
So after I completed my memoir, I went back to Poland, to Rajgród, Poland, my father's town where he was born, and I met with the mayor and I met with the city council and the town historian. When I went there, we had erected this beautiful monument. We had hired a sculptor in Israel. They shipped the monument to Gdansk and then brought it to Rajgród. And it was a beautiful monument at the outskirts of the town of Rajgród that tells a little bit about the Jewish cemetery there, it's now abandoned with an overgrowth of trees. And we erected this monument September 2014, but just a few months afterwards, it was desecrated. And I came back to Rajgród, Poland, and like 6 months later, and met with the mayor. And as of today, it's now fixed. There's cameras set up, and they were very helpful in trying to repair the monument. So I've been to Poland several times. I spoke at the Warsaw JCC and shared stories of my memoir and my message of forgiveness. This summer, I'm invited to Germany. There's a physicians conference in Munster titled Refugees, Trauma, Reconciliation, and they have asked me to come and speak and share my story.
What is the reaction from audiences, both domestically here in the U.S. as well as internationally, certainly in places like Poland and Germany, where there's so much history there with the Jewish community, with the Holocaust, with Nazi Germany? What sort of reaction do you receive?
So this is just my opinion, is that here in America, when I speak, audiences that are not Jewish are very welcoming to my concept of forgiveness. And many of the Jewish audiences, they do embrace this idea, but many of them will absolutely say, we agree with you, Karen, to a point. Forgiveness may mean letting go, but we are not going to forgive those that murdered our families, those perpetrators of the Holocaust. In Europe, it's different. People living in Europe are living across cemeteries, concentration camps. They see World War II and the effects of World War II. They live with it day in and day out. And so for them, it's more of an urgent subject for them to talk about, because they see the effects of what has happened. They live on the lands. When I went to Treblinka this past May, the lands around Treblinka are called Devil's Lands. The property there is very, very low. No one wants to live there or buy any land. The Poles don't want to live there. There's this heaviness and this weight of World War II, and I believe they're more apt to learning to forgive and moving through this.
So you talk about how you've learned to forgive your father, and you are sharing that message with audiences, again, around the globe. But tell me, Karen, what lesson have you learned from your father?
My father was the greatest teacher in my life. Because of him, I was able to learn to forgive. And he taught me to open up my heart and have compassion. And I've finally, on the day that my father passed, I had finally come to opening up my heart and having compassion for him. And that is when I told my father on his deathbed that I forgive him. And because of that, I've been able to explore other relationships in my life and deal with other issues, whether it's with the family or friends, or even if it's in the workforce. We all need to forgive. We all deal with people. We all have our behaviors, we just need to learn to understand how our behaviors during childhood will affect our relationships, whether at our family or at work. And it is very grateful for my father. Well,
Karen, we're running out of time. You have a fascinating story and an even more fascinating message, a message that I encourage our listeners to check out, find out more about through your website. again, it's to be honest, it's a controversial message. And you said that from the second that I met you, it's a controversial message, but an impactful and powerful message. And I hope our listeners will take a moment to reach out to you, get to know you a little bit better, find out where you'll be speaking, and certainly purchase a copy of your book. So, Karen, we're running out of time. How can people get a hold of you?
You can go to my website, www.karenlkaplan.com, and take a look and see my book, articles, where I'm speaking, and so on.
That's great. KarenLKaplan.com is the website where you can contact Karen Kaplan, learn more about her book, learn more about her cemetery project, learn more about that impactful, powerful, dynamic message of forgiveness. Get Down to Business is brought to you in part by Everett Wealth Solutions, a registered investment advisor and financial planning firm, a fiduciary advisor that helps you create your personal financial wealth. You can find them at everwealthsolutions.com or call 708-771-7777. Don't touch that dial. We've got a lot more for you after the break.